Hello, and welcome to 5 Steps to Getting the Testing Job You Want. I'm Kristen Jack Boney, and a little bit about me before we get started. I'm the author of 2 books, The Complete Software Tester and Logical Fallacies for Testers. I'm the creator of 2 courses, Monday Morning Automation on YouTube and Postman Essential Training on LinkedIn Learning. I'm a blogger at Think Like a Tester, and my day job, I'm a Principal Engineer 3 for software testing at Paylocity. And it's in this context of my day job that I'd like to talk to you today. I have interviewed many potential software testers for our company, and I've looked at many resumes. And so I've assembled 5 steps that will help you get the testing job you want. So let's get started. Step number 1 is to know what kind of job you want. There are a lot of different kinds of testing jobs out there, and it's important to focus your efforts on the jobs that you really want, not just apply to anything with the word testing in the description. So first, think about what type of testing you would like to do. Do you prefer to do just manual testing, or do you prefer to just write test automation code? Or do you like a combination of both, meaning you're a software test engineer who does both manual testing and automation testing? You should also consider what kind of platform you would like to be working with. Do you prefer to do mostly API testing, or do you like to do UI testing and really focus on what it is that the customer sees? Do you prefer to do mobile testing, which is extremely important these days since most people are interacting with mobile with their apps? Or would you like to be a security tester or perhaps a performance tester? So once you have decided what type of testing you'd like to do and what platform you'd like to be doing it on, then you can focus your efforts on applying for the jobs that will really be a right fit for you. So step 2 is to have a good resume. Why? Because your resume is the first thing that a company sees from you, and a poor resume won't get past the recruiter. It doesn't matter if you have a ton of testing experience. The hiring manager is never going to see your resume if it doesn't get past the recruiter. And then it's also important, if you're looking for a job in quality, your resume should be high quality. I once had an applicant who in her resume stated that she had great attention to detail, and my colleague and I counted about 10 typos in her resume. So here are some tips for having a good resume. First, make sure that your objective matches the job. If you have applied for a testing job, make sure that your objective says that you want to be a software tester. I have seen applicants who have applied for testing jobs, but their objective says they want to be a software developer. And when I see those resumes, I think this person doesn't really want this job. Make sure that you include keywords that match the job description. So if the job description says, we're looking for someone with experience with Java and Selenium, make sure that you include the words Java and Selenium in your resume. But it's also very important to be honest. I once saw an applicant who had put on his resume that he was an expert in creating SQL queries. And so then when we asked this expert to create a simple SQL join, he couldn't do it. Also include metrics wherever possible. Recruiters really like metrics, that they show the recruiters that you have made a difference. So one example of a metric that you could include is reduced testing time by 50% when I refactored our automation tests. Another metric might be reduced customer support calls by 20% after we implemented more stringent testing. Also, be sure your resume is free of typos and formatting errors. And it's not just enough to go over it yourself. Make sure that you show it to somebody else because they might see errors that you have missed. So step number 3 is to prepare for the interview. First, make sure that you research the company. Be able to say why it is that you want to work for the company. And an answer like, well, because I need a job, is not a good answer. It does not show that you are really interested in the company, which is what interviewers want to see. Make sure that you are brushing up on the skills that the job requires. You will probably be asked to demonstrate some of your skills in the interview. So make sure to brush up on those skills. If the job description says that they are looking for someone who is familiar with JavaScript and Postman, make sure that you practice a little bit with JavaScript and Postman. Understand who will be interviewing you. So you might get your first interview with a recruiter, or you might have an interview with the director of engineering. You need to know who your audience is so you can prepare appropriately, because you'll give different styles of answers to the recruiter than you will to the director of engineering. And finally, prepare good questions. This shows that you are interested in the company. Usually at the end of an interview, the interviewer will say, "Oh, do you have any questions for me?" And a bad example of a question would be, "Well, what is a typical day like at your company?" This does not show that you are interested in the company. Make sure that you've done some research about the tech stack or about a particular feature that the company is working on, so you can ask questions about that. That shows your interest. Now that you have prepared for the interview, it is time to ace the interview. So some general tips that are good for any kind of interview, whether it's for a software testing job or any other kind of job, is to arrive early, whether you are virtual or in person. So if this is an in-person interview, I like to give myself twice as much time as I need to get to the interview. That means that even if the train breaks down or I get stuck in traffic, I still have a chance to get there on time. Often that means that I get to an interview an hour early, but I just use that time to sit and read a book or something, and then I present myself for the interview about 5 or 10 minutes beforehand. If it's a virtual interview, make sure that you log on about 10 minutes ahead of time so that you can check to make sure that your camera and microphone are working and you can make any changes that are necessary. Make sure that you dress appropriately for your interview. Just because software startups often have their developers wearing t-shirts and shorts doesn't mean that that's how you should dress for an interview. Make sure that you are dressing in business attire that show that you are serious about the job. Now, a lot of times when people get nervous, they tend to talk too much. So don't let this be you. You want to make sure that the interviewer has opportunities to ask as many questions as they want. If you talk too much, you go on for 20 minutes when somebody says, "Tell us about yourself," then they don't have the opportunity to ask their questions. But conversely, there are some people who, when they are nervous, they talk too little. And this is because they're afraid of saying the wrong thing. So then they answer in short answers that don't really provide any context. So you want to balance in between talking too much and talking too little. Think of the interview as a conversation between you and the interviewer. So make sure that you give them opportunities to ask questions. Make sure that you give them enough information that they know what to ask next. And here are some tips for whiteboard questions. First of all, remember to breathe. Whiteboard questions are very nerve-wracking, so take a deep breath and try to relax. And interviewers understand that you're going to be a little bit nervous, so that's okay. Next, ask clarifying questions. This shows the interviewer how you think. If they give you a problem to solve and you aren't exactly sure what it is that they are asking, you can ask some clarifying questions like, what is our intended audience for this problem? Or will I have access to the back end for this testing? Then talk through how you would solve the problem and keep talking. This shows the interviewer that you are thinking through the problem. There's nothing worse than giving an interviewee a whiteboard question and having them just sit there and say nothing, because the interviewer doesn't know, have we been cut off? Is the interviewee thinking about the question? So make sure that you're talking through what you would do. And if you don't know, it's okay to take a guess. You can say, "You know what? I've never encountered a problem like this before, but here's what I would do first to solve the problem, and here's what I would do next." This shows your thinking style, and it shows that you are the kind of person who isn't going to be frightened by hard problems, that you know how to attack them and solve them. And finally, step 5. Most people don't do this. Write a thank you note. A thank you note shows the interviewer that you really want the job. So get the email address of your interviewer from the recruiter, or if the recruiter can't give it to you, make sure to send the thank you note to the recruiter and ask them to forward it on to the interviewer. Thank the interviewer for their time in your thank you note. Mention something that you found interesting about the company. This shows that you were listening and that you're interested. List the reasons why you think that you are right for the job. Your interviewer might have done 4 or 5 interviews for this same position that week, and you want to make sure that you are reminding them of what your skills are and why you're right for the job. And finally, state how much you want to work for the company. You want to be excited about working for the company. Now, I know that if I had 2 candidates who both did well in their interview, and I received a thank you note from one candidate and I did not receive a thank you note from another candidate, I would definitely pick the first candidate. So make sure you write that thank you note. And that is all I have for you today. It would probably be a good idea to take a screenshot of this page to find all the different ways that you can interact with me. So you can find me on my blog, thinkingtester.com, and you can also connect with me on LinkedIn or on X. My book, The Complete Software Tester, and my book, The Logical Fallacies for Testers, are both available on Amazon. And you can find my Monday Morning Automation YouTube course, which is completely free on YouTube, and my Postman Essential training course on LinkedIn Learning. Thanks, and I look forward to answering your questions.